Well, it is Thursday, so that means it's time for our weekly tech report. On deck this week, cryptography goes mainstream. It appears the CIA is in bed with AT&T, and it's back. The underground illegal trading website known as the Silk Road was put on a 4-week hiatus after the FBI shut it down. But despite law enforcement's best efforts to stop the illegal gun and drug trade, the site is back up and running again. But we begin with AT&T. An article published today by the New York Times reports that the CIA is paying the telecommunications giant more than $10 million a year to assist with overseas counterterrorism investigations. Essentially, AT&T was handing over treasure troves of phone records to the CIA on a voluntary basis. No subpoenas, no court records, your data up for sale. Earlier, I spoke with founder of LavaBit, Ladar Levinson. He closed his encryption service down after the FBI forced him to hand over the key, which provides unabated access to all of his clients' emails and information. He says that he isn't really all that surprised that the CIA and AT&T are in cahoots.
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. The FBI makes it a point of recruiting commercial companies like LavaBit, like AT&T, into a program that they're calling InfraGard that allows commercial companies to collaborate with law enforcement on legitimate investigations. The fact that some of these investigations have basically gone over the line doesn't surprise me in the least, given my experience.
And one of the points that I found very interesting about this case is that the CIA is paying AT&T $10 million a year is what we're hearing in some figures. However, they didn't only refuse to pay you, they charged you. They fined you $5,000 a day. So what do you think of that?
I think the issue was pretty clear. I was going to have them pay me $2,000 to cover the cost of putting in the equipment and the development time to actually create the logic necessary to log out the information they wanted, right? Well, the fact that they turned me down, to me, was a pretty clear indication that what they really wanted was more than just the meta information. And if they accepted my solution, they wouldn't get that. What they really wanted were those SSL keys, because that gave them blanket access to the entire system and all of the information coming in and out of the network.
Now, the last time that I interviewed you, you had said that you were in the process of trying to release that SSL key and actually teaming up with others to kind of release it so that there can be other LavaBit-like companies. Where are you at in that process right now?
Well, I'm not trying to release the SSL key, but I am trying to release the source code that powered LavaBit in the hopes that, you know, at least because LavaBit has to remain shut down while the court case works its way through the system, which could take a year, maybe two, I thought the next best thing to having a LavaBit out there would be 100 LavaBit-like services. So I've teamed up with a couple other people that are very influential in the email security field, and the idea we came up with is, hey, if you're going to release this code, let's integrate support for a new protocol that makes security a priority so that we can fix this problem at its core and prevent something like this from happening again. And our hope is to get that code out there in the spring so that other people can benefit from security.
And that is just one of the many projects that you are currently working on. You're also working on, as I understand it, you've teamed up with Silent Circle to create a Kickstarter with email encryption services known as Dark Mail. Something I have to ask you, because the FBI was able to get its hands on LavaBit and force you to give up that information, what is the difference now between this Dark Mail and LavaBit in terms of encryption?
Well, the idea behind Dark Mail is that, well, let me back up a little bit. The goal of the LavaBit encryption system was to remove LavaBit from the surveillance equation by not allowing us to get access to users' information. Well, we realized, based on what happened, that just because I don't have access doesn't mean the feds can't gain access. So what we talked about doing at Silent Circle is coming up with a new protocol, adapting some of the stuff that they've developed for their other products, and basically rolling it out globally so that everybody can get end-to-end encryption. That is a system where the only computer or device capable of decrypting an email message is the user's computer itself. So no matter what happens to the service provider, we can't give them any information or any method of accessing that information. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to push surveillance back down to the individual. If you want to find out what somebody is saying, you have to go ask them. You can't recruit the service provider to spy secretly on your behalf.
So transparency all the way down to the person so that they can know exactly what is happening with their very private information.
How do you defend yourself if you don't know what's going on?
That is a very good question. Now, something that's really interesting in the wake of all these Edward Snowden revelations is the fact that in many ways, cryptography, encryption services is becoming mainstream. Do you feel that way?
I don't think encryption is becoming mainstream, but I think there's a greater realization that it needs to become mainstream. And going back to darkmail, that's our goal, is to integrate encryption into the protocol so that anybody who can use email today will be able to use darkmail tomorrow and benefit from its security. And I think what we're going to see is a new generation of products and protocols that take that same approach. I think we spent the last 30 years trying to make things work on the internet, and we're probably going to be spending the next 10 to 20 years moving from trying to make things work to trying to make things secure.
And I'm sure you've gotten a lot of support for this, have you not?
Yeah, thousands of backers. I checked it this morning, and we've already raised $70,000.
Wonderful. Well, let's switch topics one more time. Meanwhile, this underground internet site known as the Silk Road was discovered by the FBI recently. It was shut down for about 4 weeks, but then right as it shut down, this message popped up and was sent out to everyone. And what it says, it was sent out by Dread Pirate Roberts, and what it says is, we are proud to announce, though, that our new security measures include emergency strategies to ensure that in the event of Silk Road's demise once more, no member will lose their coins. We have learned hard lessons from the unfortunate events of recent weeks, and the man hours that have gone into this new release are phenomenal. So it is back up and running. Now, interestingly, the website, which is notorious for selling illegal goods like drugs and guns, apparently also funds charities. In this very uplifting letter, it says, we have already committed a large percentage of revenues to good causes, charities, and organizations who support our cause or have similar interests. So, selling guns and drugs to support charities. What do you think about the idea that the FBI shut it down, but it's kind of like the head that you cut one off and several others pop up? Can the FBI and other organizations really stop innovation when it comes to the internet?
It's more important than innovation. It goes back to the question of freedom. And that's the idea behind Silk Road, is that they wanted to create a marketplace where there were no rules. There was no government to come in and say what you could and couldn't do. And they were going to let the world decide what the marketplace should look like. And while I can't necessarily advocate selling, harmful drugs and weapons, secretly through this site, I can appreciate the necessity of freedom and the ability to make decisions that others would disagree with. And that's exactly what Silk Road embodies. And I think if we look at history, we see that societies, no matter what a government does, will always tend towards wanting to be free.
Wanting to be free to make their own choices, whether they're right or wrong. Ladar Levinson, owner and operator of LavaBit LLC, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Megan.